This is Resonance, a podcast for leaders that unpacks the power of song, silence, and strategy.
We believe that great leadership begins with deep listening, not just to others, but to the still small voice within.
It's not just about being a successful leader, it's about being soulfully aligned as well.
In a world moving fast, Resonance invites you to pause and reconnect with purpose, people, and possibility.
We'll dive into some cool stories, celebrate with friends, and dig deep into the music too. 'Cause song has a way of saying what words cannot alone.
So whether you're leading a business, a team, or just trying to lead your own life with more meaning, this is Resonance.
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 Welcome back to Resonance. I'm Mike Ferrell, and I'm joined by the legendary singer-songwriter, musician, philanthropist, ace golfer, you name it, he does it down in Mississippi, Steve Azar, and also the legendary ukulele player and brilliant strategist, Randy Harrington.
I'll take it.
And I'm just a legend in my own mind, so there we go.
Hi, Ferrell. Yes,
Yeah.
there we go.
Wait a minute. Let me jump in right now. This is going to be an unorganized intro, the worst we've ever had. But I can tell you, you're not going to leave all that on me, especially when my golf game is not what it used to be. Second of all, Mike the Monk Guy Ferrell, you are the theologian of business, and the Dr. Randy Harrington, the strategist beyond stratospheres. So let's go from there.
There we go. There we go. We needed a little songwriting magic in there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, today we got a topic that is going to be right up Steve's alley. So the title of today's episode is The Difference Between Noise and Signal.
Yes.
And I know that Steve's got a lot of thoughts on that topic as far as what the difference is between noise and signal. I told him earlier I wanted to really name this The Difference Between Music and Noise, but I decided not to. But Steve, I'm going to tee you up and kick it right over to you, and let's talk about what the difference is between noise and signal.
Well, you've thrown some things on the board here, so I want to reflect on this. You're talking music industry and the creative side. You know, how trends, opinions, outside distractions or pressure sort of get in the way of the authentic voice and direction of maybe where that songwriter feels like they need to be at the time. Well, let me just give you an example. Songwriters in Nashville, from their publishers, which is pressure, right? You're getting paid by your publisher. Song pluggers that go out and take your songs and play them for the artists and producers and record labels, you're getting pressure from them because they're getting pressures from the publisher and whoever, you know. So the folks that own it, I mean, it's sort of its own little stock market, right? And you have to answer to these things, and you've got a certain window of life. Maybe it's a 2-year contract, 3-year contract, where you got to deliver enough to show promise or be recouped because they're paying you money. So you got to listen. So every Monday morning, you'd get it's called a pitch sheet. And this pitch sheet was telling you that Reba wants an up-tempo that's a la like such and such. Martina wants a ballad that or a power ballad that reminds you of one of her biggest hits, da-da-da. And then, so every artist in town is being pitched to all of these publishers, and they go in and they meet and all that, and they tell the songwriters, okay, eat your Captain Crunch or whatever your cereal of the day is, and go to your room and focus on that. Well, songwriters, a lot of times, have already been inspired before they walk in that room, and sometimes it's good to have some sort of direction. So that's kind of a cool thing. But a lot of times, songwriters, the great ones, just like to write what they're feeling. And then they want the song, they want the artist to come to them. I mean, they're not going to come to them necessarily unless you're on fire. And then they just say, line up, you can have my next song. But that's rare. It's been done. And I know some songwriters it's happened to: Anthony Smith, Jeffrey Steele, Craig Wiseman. These guys, what's your next song? I'll take it. I mean, that's where they were in the world of my old producer, Rafe Van Hoy. So they were able to sort of live by their own rules because they were killing it, right? So anyway, it was always to me a unique thing to think because I was always writing for myself. So I was signed as an artist writer to write for myself. And I'd have folks come in or people from the same publishing company want to write with me. And so I was totally focused on that rather than this pitch sheet. All the songs that I've basically gotten cut in my life and recorded by the artists, they've heard walking down record label halls. They've heard This Way. They heard it on my record. They heard it when I play live, when we did a show with them. There's all these ways, but I wasn't in that heavy game, although I've gotten a lot more into it as I've played less. So it's not playing 150 dates anymore. I'm playing 75, 80 shows a year. So I got more time to focus on movie soundtracks and film and all of that. But I got to tell you, it's a very unique thing. And it's almost like just you program the songwriter to do that. And then when the songwriter feels like they've done it, then you got to play it for the song plugger who's going to go out and sell it. There's no selling, guys, but who's going to go out and sell the idea of this song, this artist recording it. And then there's the idea of the publisher going like, wait a minute, you mean you should say this rather than this? Or you think that maybe these lines are wrong or maybe this melody, and you have to go through all of that process. So your creative juices and everything that you thought was right sometimes gets beat on pretty good. And sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. So you got to sort of fight for it when you really feel like it's worth fighting for, like you really believe in it. And then you can say, I told you so. Or the publisher will go, I told you so because you made the change. Make sense?
Sure.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting to see that the whole creative process kind of is at a fork in the road there. You know, and I imagine that there are songwriters that prefer to do that kind of, they love that constraint of, oh, Reba wants a ballad. Okay, now I've got a place to start and I'm just not pulling out of.
Not only that, Randy, they say a ballad and they'll say a description of some other song that it reminds. I mean, sometimes they'll go that far, I see what you're saying. Yes, a lot of songwriters come in and they're just so good at crafting a song that becomes like they don't have to think before they get there. They just read the pitch sheet and they go in the room and let's go.
Yep.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Yep. You know, I have a friend who's a contractor, and one of the things that he is very interesting about is he doesn't like the idea of like buying a house and flipping it or something like that. I mean, he could do that all day long, drunk and blindfolded. And I said, so why in the world wouldn't you just be doing that? And he said, because I would have to be doing work that is designed for everybody to like. In other words, if I'm building a rental or something like that, or a flip, everything has to be neutral and boring and normal. He said, that's not the way I like to think. I want to build something that's going to last. And I want to build something that's amazing and that demonstrates, you know, the amazing materials or whatever it is. And it's not that it's ostentatious. It's not that it's over the top, but he brings a sense of my job, my work. When I'm building something, by God, I want it to be my work.
He wants Song of the Year every time, not just radio candy.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
I get it.
Yeah. And happily he's able to do that, right? So he's good enough at what he does that he is able to, he would see going and doing the house flipping thing as kind of a sellout, right?
Yeah, I get it.
But somebody like me, that would be like an apex effort as a guy who, you know, homie don't drywall. I don't, you know, I call the guy for that kind of stuff. You know, I'm not going to be.
You know, go ahead, Randy.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So, you know, it's interesting because Steve, you talk about that aspect of all the pressure and all of that kind of stuff. I think another way to look at this is, you know, when we talk about noise, there's a lot of things that are noise in our world today. You know, we get information overload, we get social media, we get pressure from this and pressure from that and all of those kinds of things from a creative standpoint. And then I would actually argue that also from a leadership standpoint, how do you sort through all that noise to maintain that creative voice?
That's a question for me. I tell you what, for me, look, you're starving for an idea, because when you're in this situation where you're writing daily and you're having to pick the pen up whether the pen's ready or not, or has ink in it or not, do the math behind that and go a little deeper. But it's a lot easier for me when I walk in and the pen jumps into my hand.
Yeah.
It's going like, I'm ready for you to do this, because all this stuff's been sort of stirring around, and it's been something that's been in my heart or on my mind for a while. And that is the way that I write best. Now, there was one guy named Mark Allen Springer, wrote huge hits, 4 Kenny Chesney #1s, brought back Tanya Tucker's career with 2 Sparrows and a Hurricane. Wrote Where Corn Don't Grow. I mean, Where Corn Don't Grow knocks me on my head, because hard times are real. There's dusty fields wherever you go, but you might change your mind because the weeds are high where corn don't grow. And it's talking about him moving out of the farm and into the city. And I mean, that just knocks me out, right? And so anyway, Mark Allen was the one that told me, I want you to get out of the office. I want you to go drive. I want you to go build something. I want you to get away. Do some things that you don't necessarily usually do. And I want the song to come to you. So he was a patient publisher with me. Everybody, and then I had a very patient publisher, my first publisher, except I wasn't patient. So he was saying, okay, you're working your tail off. I see it. And things are good. You're writing every day, and you're writing with 3 different people, and you're da-da-da-da. But I felt like he was saying, slow a little down, because let's get quality in there, because quantity versus quality. But he never put that down, because he loved my work ethic. He could tell that I would just work 28 hours. I'd find an extra 4 hours a day if it meant me writing a 3rd song a day. And he really appreciated that. So it just depended on the situation and the pressure you put on yourself, because you start looking at a clock and you're going like, okay, I got this much left of this deal. If I don't do something that's going to deliver, then what happens, right? You lose your deal, or 3 months later, 3 months before your deal's up, they come and give you the good or bad news. And so I was fortunate enough each time in my publishing agreement to keep moving the ball forward until I didn't need a publishing deal anymore. So I was out and doing it live, and it was my own thing, and the live gigs were greater than the sum of everything else. So that was the deal. Now let me back up 1 second, because people always talk about this, and they always ask the question. You don't sell a song. You can sell your publishing rights in the beginning. So say just give me somebody, say Dua Lipa, right? She goes up and she goes, I want this song. All she does, she records it. If she's the first person to ever record it, she has to put it on hold. And then if she records it and it makes the record and she puts it out, then everybody starts to make money. If it's been recorded once and it's been released, then the world can record it. But they have to do the right things. They have to go in and, and do all the right paperwork and, and let people know that they did all this stuff. And, you get paid. You'd like to have a song. You think about certain songs that have been recorded so many times. So you want it to be recorded many times, but the song cannot be recorded by anyone unless permission given by the songwriter and or publisher to release it first. And then after that, it becomes a Wild West.
So, you made a great comment there about getting away from things. And you guys know that I just got out of the car about half an hour ago, driving back from Spearfish Canyon, where I spent all day yesterday in beautiful Spearfish Canyon in the Black Hills of South Dakota, getting out of the noise, getting away from it with a client of mine and doing a deep dive strategy day with them to really figure out some of the things that they needed to do to kind of move their business, their company to the next level. And it's really interesting, because when you're able to get people out of the noise, then they can really focus on and think about deeply what it is they want to, what do they want to do? What do they want to accomplish? What are the challenges they face? All of those kinds of things. And I think too many times in the work that I've done, and Randy, I know you're in the same boat, the work that I've done, they don't get out of the noise. And then they have a hard time separating the noise from the signal, what's really important, what really matters. Randy, talk a little bit about that.
You bet. So these are trigger words for me, by the way, signal and noise. It takes me way on back. In fact, I stumbled out after I saw what our topic was going to be today and hit the old Harrington bookshelf and found the lovely Stephen Littlejohn, Theories of Human Communication. This was something I taught from for a long time at Chapel Hill and at a couple other places. And what we find out is that information theory is really what we're talking about here. And we talk about comes from Shannon and Weaver, goes back to the Bell Labs back in like the 1940s and 50s. And they had this idea, the signal to noise ratio kind of thing. And what they tell us is that information is really associated with, is a measure of entropy. Now, that sounds crazy, but hang on.
I need help with that real quick. Time out.
I know. I'm
What is
going to
entropy?
explain it. Yep, I'm going to explain it. So entropy is the level of disorganization that occurs.
Oh.
It's randomness. Entropy is when things start going sideways or upside down. More or less, when you are in a very, when there's high levels of entropy, you can't predict what's going to happen. You got no idea. Everything is up in the air. So on the other hand, if there's low levels of entropy, then there's no information. The more entropy there is, the more information there is. But the more information there is, the more uncertainty there is. So this is one of the things that is really interesting about this stuff. So think of it this way. Would you rather play blackjack with 1 deck of cards or 3 deck of cards?
One.
Right. Why?
Because I'm counting cards.
You're counting cards. I thought you were all the time, by the way.
I'm counting cards, but
I knew it.
I'm going to pay attention to how many aces and jacks and tens and whatever.
Yeah, right. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you try to understand that information? Because that's manageable. Now, you get 3 decks of cards, or heaven forbid, you go to Vegas.
And you have a couple drinks, then you're not good.
Then it's all, every hand then is just completely randomized. You have way more potential, way more information, therefore way more uncertainty. And the casino is going to take you every time because of that. So this is the thing. So then information then is a measure of entropy. And why is that important? Well, it's important because an organization, for example, really wants to be on stable ground. It really wants to be chunking along. It doesn't want to be doing this. And I know as a business owner that I've had a really good year, let's say. This is particularly when I was doing a bunch of work for Microsoft. Had a really good year, our company. But 3 months, we made a whole bunch of money. 5 months, we made next to nothing. So it's like this. It was like, yes, it was like great, and then it's terrible, and then it's great, and then it's terrible. And that's a completely nauseating way to run a business. It's one of the reasons I had hair back in the day, and it was a lot more like yours, Azar. Not really, but close. But anyway, I mean, this is what wears people out is so stability becomes a big important thing. And therefore what we want is information that allows us to maintain a homeostasis or to be balanced, right? That's what we're really looking for. Okay. One more quick thought.
Yeah, come on.
If you look at a high performance team, you look at a badass team, you look at a SEAL team, or you look at somebody that's, a firefighter team or a paramedic team. Yeah. Paramedic team. Let's stay with, so, they swoop in and there's victims laying around and they're on it, man. They're just ding, 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 ding. And when you look at that high performing team, one of the characteristics is going to be they don't communicate much at all, apparently, because they've got the situation so dialed. They've controlled every conceivable variable so that they have reduced the entropy level to the biggest level they possibly could, where communication, that kind of communication, is no longer needed. And so there's this weird kind of kung fu, this upside down thinking that happens in information theory. So now let's come all the way back to signal to noise, and then I'm going to be done. Noise is what emerges as entropy rises in a situation. So noise is what's going to interfere with, it's going to create a disconnect with anything. And so, for example, when you have to take your song out of you've just written it, it's a beautiful thing, you've played it 6 times, you feel pretty good about it, and then there's that first time you play it for somebody. Tell me about that, Azar. How does that feel when you do that? It's brand new. It's like a little tiny baby. And you're going to sit down, you got your guitar, and maybe you're playing it for Gwen. Would you play it for Gwen first? Is that something you would do?
She usually hears me through the walls or somewhere, and she'll go, "That's the same melody you did such and such. Mix it up a little bit. I've heard that melody before." And I'll go. Then I'll race to the piano, where it takes me away from that. So I'm a really good listener. I've gotten to the point right now where I do listen, and I love critique, and I think I've always been pretty good about that. But when I'm certain of something, I go with that. And it's my gut's been right most of the time.
Okay, so when you finish the song, you feel like this is it. I feel like this is pretty much it. I'm ready to get
the noise that I'm getting. Yeah, the noise I'm sorry, but the noise I'm getting from the outside, to me, if it's got to be a particular kind of noise, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
For me to move away from what's there, and I just feel like that there's a lot of times the noise.
He's discerning the noise. There's some noise he will let in.
It can be very uncertain.
And some noise he's like, I'm not paying attention to that.
Well, when they're very uncertain, sometimes that means whatever. But it's hard to explain when I feel like I need to move on the noise.
Yeah,
it's just you sort of sense it and feel it. It's not a lot. It's not a lot of your noggin doing the work, guys. I'm telling you, it's more of your heart and how you feel. How do you feel about this?
Oof.
You know what I mean?
Ooh. Okay, so let's drop another big word. We're going to drop the word somatic.
Yeah, you are.
So you're having a somatic response.
I'm so mad at you. I'm so mad.
Yeah, somatic, SOMATIC. So what somatic response is that your body is telling you something and not your brain. That's what you were just saying. It came from your heart.
Right.
And so this idea of a somatic intelligence is getting really hot in the business field today. There's a whole bunch of stuff that are talking about lived experience and all that kind of stuff where you don't know unless you feel it.
Yeah. Now, how do you feel without your brain? I mean, we can talk about all this we want, but I want to talk about that more, but I've got a question to ask you guys about noise. When, I don't know if I can go there yet. Do I have permission to move there? Because I have a question for Mike the Monk Guy Ferrell. I'm coming hard at him right now. So you talk about going to this secluded place and you're this beautiful place out of the elements of what they're used to. Yep. With the world going remote and with folks not being around anybody and everybody's at their computers and they're not in this noisy environment, when does not enough noise hurt the situation?
Well, first off, I would argue that there's as much noise, if not more noise, when they're remote. Because what's happening is it's all coming through their computer screen. Okay. We're not just talking sound here. We're talking noise can be anything. Noise can be distractions. It can be emails coming in. It can be social media stuff coming in. It can be somebody talking in the background. It can be the watch. Yeah. That's the thing about it is that's where understanding that just because you're in some place by yourself doesn't necessarily mean you're out of the noise. Now, in the case that I had with this client yesterday, we purposely turned the noise off to really focus on the conversation between the two of us and looking at the data that we both pulled together to kind of think about where the company goes. But Randy, you use the term, and you guys know that this is one of my favorite terms, is discernment. And when noise is out there, discernment is critical because we have to be able to discern what's important, what we need to focus on, what's going to impact us. That's the signal versus what we really don't need to deal with, what we need to try and turn off, the noise piece. And so discernment is a great way to do that because it allows us to first center ourselves from a standpoint of being in a place where we know that this is what we want to think about, that we want to gather information, we want to bounce ideas off people, we want to then weigh all of the things that we have, and then make sure that it fits. Again, talking about stuff that I've talked about before, make sure it fits within our higher purpose vision of what it is we're trying to do. and then we make the decision, And so that discernment process, especially when there's a lot of noise, is vital because it really allows us to kind of sift through the noise and identify what the most important signal is, whether it's in our leadership, whether it's with our family, whether it's writing a song, whatever the case may be. That discernment process is absolutely essential.
And there's an implicit algorithm in your head, and it's associated with your values, right?
Yeah.
So that discernment is going to be an extension of what I care about. So if you do have a sense that family is what it's all about, and the family calls, then that signal is always going to, that noise is always going to be able to come in and be engaged. And if you don't, then, you can put it off. I know my father was a military man, and I wondered about what was important. I wasn't sure all the time because he had to go jump into that B-52 or go do that thing that he had to go do. And then you're a kid and you're going, gee whiz, what's more important here? Well, for people like police officers and doctors and military people, those are the trade-offs that you have to contend with. So anyway, the point is that discernment is related to your values. The values are shaped over time. We've talked about that in other episodes for sure. But discernment also implies your own sense of your locus of control. That is, so for example, Steve was able to write a song that was his creation. It was for him to perform. He has a very strong locus of control as an artist.
Yeah.
He's doing it. And so he can trust his own judgment because it's for him. It's like if he's cooking and he's going to eat it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to make it the way I want to, by God.
But if I'm cooking it and you guys are eating it, I'm definitely going to ask.
Yeah.
How do you feel? You want that, you need that reassurance. So if we're talking about cooking, well, this is a good example, right? Because the three of us love to cook, and we're going to want to know how each one of us feel about that recipe.
Sure.
That's
yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it'll probably be a little competitive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just
Very, very competitive. We could put on our own food festival, the three of us.
I was going to say, I could see a cook-off coming.
Yeah.
The whole, one of the things that I would say is that the whole strategic planning process, whether you're a one-person business, an artist, a major corporation, whatever the case may be, the whole strategic planning process, one of the first things that should happen is to turn off the noise. It is to really sift through how are we going to do this in a place without all of the stuff coming at us. How are we going to do this strategic planning process? Because I think what happens a lot of times, and certainly I've seen this happen with my clients, is that they go into a strategic planning process and they got 900 things going on around them. And the strategic planning process is worthless because they can't turn off the noise. They can't get out of the things that are going on. And so I think an effective strategic planning process really has to be a discernment. And being in a place where you can do that process and do it well and understand that that's what the strategic plan ought to look like when you come out the other end, and it's not impacted by all of the the noise that's going on around you.
Can we jump back into what you were talking about earlier when I jumped to the noise part about being remote and all that? Y'all set me straight.
Yeah.
Can we go back to what you were talking about, the feeling and that?
Sure.
I'd like to. Can we talk a little bit more about that? I'm curious.
Yeah. It's very. If there were trends, like trendy trends in organizational consulting, this would be one of them.
Huh.
And the idea that your neurology and your brain physiology and just your body is in control of a whole bunch of stuff. There are a whole bunch of decisions that are being made every second of every day that you have nothing to do with. Mm-hmm. You don't think about breathing. You can hold your breath for a little bit, but there's all kinds of things that are going on in the background. In fact, the vast majority of what it means to be alive is going on in the background. And then the other piece is everything on you is not your DNA. There's like only about 60% of your mass. I'm getting this wrong, but it's a whole bunch of other DNA in your body that has nothing to do with who you are, because we're a bunch of organisms in there. So So this basic idea of somatic is that when your body is feeling or doing something, it's just you're sort of noticing it. It's inserting itself into your prefrontal cortex and saying, "Hey, buckaroo, it's time for you to get some sleep." Or, "Hey, did you realize you haven't eaten?" Or whatever it is. So it's rare, but sometimes it has to reach in there and tell you. And if you really dial in, and this is where the kind of trendiness stuff is, if you really listen and start paying attention to the signals that your body is giving you, you can find this kind of discernment alignment. Your body will go, "Yeah, that was the right decision to make," or "Yeah, not so sure that was the right decision." Now, before we go too far down there, you got one part of your brain in the back there, Mr. Amygdala, who that's a threat. That's a threat. Can't go over there. Don't do that. Don't whatever you do. Don't get off that. So that's all that thing is doing. Prefrontal cortex is up there going, "I don't think it's that bad. I don't know." And so your brain is fighting all the time. But when you can listen to your body, it's powerful. And it's so powerful that we're understanding from a neurological level that your gut and your heart and your brain are all active in this dynamic dance that shows up being what we would call a decision or a feeling or an idea. So this idea of felt experience is a powerful thing. When you feel it, you achieve something. And this is what great service happens. When you have a great service experience, you feel it. It's like, wow, that was amazing. A great performance. Wow. You feel it in your guts. You can't even put your finger on what it is. That's somatic. That's real power. And in a world where there's so much BS in the atmosphere, when you feel it directly, then you finally have an empirical base. Oh, that was real.
Yeah, and I think the other piece of your question there, Steve, about the remote versus, in person, and this certainly ties right into what Randy was just talking about. We're social animals. We need to be around people. This idea that I can sit behind a computer screen and get that same feeling, that same emotion that Randy's talking about 8 hours a day, 350 days a year, whatever it is, it's virtually impossible. And I think what people, and especially what psychologists and sociologists and some of those folks that study this stuff are seeing now, is they're seeing that this remote work is not healthy. But unfortunately, because we came out of COVID and started it all, everybody, especially the younger generation, is saying, "Oh, well, yeah, this is cool. I just get to sit around and look at my computer all day." But you see so many instances of mental health. You see so many instances of depression, of anxiety. I think that there are numerous studies out there that have proven that this remote work is not such a great idea. And I think Randy hits it right on the head. You can't get to that feeling, that somatic approach that Randy's talking about, when you're not intercommunicating with others.
Isn't it interesting that we're aware of mental anxiety and illness and the stress that this generation has and all that, and we're doing things that is not helping it. It's moving it further away from the fix. And so what are we doing? Like, what are we doing?
Right.
If we're social animals and we need that. I mean, I know you can go get that later, but there's something about being on stage with other people. I can do solo acts. I can work with my band. And I'm going to tell you, 99 times out of 100, I just love it with my band. It's just more of it's something about the camaraderie and the feeling of sharing it with somebody. Now, I've had plenty of magical solo nights, just a piano or a couple guitars, whatever.
Then it's with the audience. I mean, that's just more of
it's been very wonderful, but to do that every night compared to the other with people and with guys you really, really, really love. Also, that aspect of it, you've been with a very, very long time. How good can we be tonight? You know what I mean? Like and so that is, and then a crowd of people, I'm just saying that is something that it's a must for me to survive. So
and
what are we doing?
It's feeding your brain is giving you all kinds of cocktails when that's happening.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Dopamine and everything is flooding through your brain and it's going, yeah, baby. Yeah. Because this is how humanity has developed over the millennia, is by being together and working together.
Sure.
It's
Right.
what we do that the rest of the animal kingdom struggles with, or they do it differently, but
Right.
you get my point.
And I think back to our childhood. You know, I mean, I'm guessing we were all free range kids. We were on our bikes. We were going everywhere. We were, you know, we were all over the neighborhood. We were playing with our buddies. We were doing all this kind of stuff. You look at some of these kids now, they're on a screen all the time. You know, how many times have you been in a restaurant lately where you've seen a family of four sitting there and there's no conversation going whatsoever? Mom and dad are on their phones. The two kids have tablets and they don't even look at each other. And you
There's
wonder
pieces
why some of those things are happening. This is a societal issue, and it certainly feeds right into a business issue, because these are the types of people that leaders are having to hire and figure out how to work with.
Right. There's no way. And so that's definitely, that nurturing process right there is absolutely going to affect them in everything that they do tomorrow. Everything.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, you see that. Listen, if you go to a restaurant and you don't see most of the people doing that, then you wonder where the heck you are. Are you 20 years, 30 years ago? Like, what, am I dated back into this restaurant? You know, is this, am I back in, set back in time, back in the future? But, it's really interesting, guys, where we are, and talking about the noise that's in front of you and that people are using in their daily, not just daily, momentarily, every minute they spend. How much time are they doing this?
Yep.
And without communicating with actual folks.
Right.
I mean, like,
and when you've got all that noise, how do you figure out what's important and what's not?
Mm-hmm.
That's the challenge, I think. That's the challenge. And as we see these people come to work in the working world, they aren't able to make decisions based on human interaction because they haven't had any. They've got to make decisions based on what they've looked at on a screen. And it's like, this is a huge challenge for leaders in every single industry, because we've got to figure out how to get them back in the office, how to retrain them on how to be social animals, and understand that that's how teams function. And when teams are social animals, they function effectively. Right, Randy?
Well, Randy, I want to say, before you answer that, I want to just back up, and this will be a dual thing for what Mike just said. You brought up the Navy SEALs, and they don't think about it, right? Great football, great sports teams, great bands, great. You go in the time when you're practicing and you're learning things.
Right.
This is hard, learning how to pull, and during this play, I mean, you think about every little nuance that each person has to get. It's like being synchronized swimming, everybody. Yeah. And so when that happens and nobody's thinking about it and they're just doing it and everybody does it right, then it becomes a work of art. And then you become a national champion or a Super Bowl champion, or your band becomes the greatest band live, or whatever. In your workplace, you're on top of the world, your sales are out the charts, and you're being successful. I get that.
So if you look into the world of quantum consciousness, what they will tell you, Azar, is it seems like, we don't know this for sure, but when that happens, it isn't just like, oh, we're all doing the same thing. We're all doing the same thing. I mean, it's not like, yes, it's happening individually in your own head, but we're actually a part of a wave function where we are making interdependent oscillations of energy and adaptation that allow for that synchronization. And we're going to do an episode at some point on this idea of rhythm, and how that sense of aligned rhythm is one of the places where you get that synchronicity. And there's some other big fancy words around it, consubstantiality and other things like that. But at the end of the day, what I'm telling you is, this is back to that somatic thing. This is bigger than just you going, we were all together in that. No, you were all together in that. There was some kind of unity of purpose. And that's when you have that sense at a concert or wherever, where it was like, man, you had to be there. You just I can't even describe it, because there was no way to experience it unless you were at that show.
And I think that also goes to the fact that you have practiced it, you have rehearsed it, it has become part of what you do. You've figured out how to turn off the noise. But think about what happens when one person on that team gets distracted. You know,
Yeah.
somebody
Weak
fumbles
link.
a football, somebody picks off interception, you know, somebody throws the ball into the stands, whatever the case may be. That, you know, that one distraction by the team, by one person on that team, can lead to disastrous results. And so the idea that rehearsal, that practice, that you know, working together to create that wave, as Randy said, is so vital, because it allows you to shut off the distractions and have utmost focus on exactly what it is you're trying to do.
There's a guy that I'm working with right now on a project, and he's an interesting guy, very smart guy. And one of the things I love about working with him is I'll send him some bunch of junk for him to review, and about 15 or 20 minutes will go by, and then he'll send me back a text that says 5x5 or 5x5. And that is a military term. 5x5 means I'm reading both the signal and the readability of it. I'm hearing it and I'm getting it, is basically what he's saying. I've got 5, I've maxed out there, and in terms of the signal is fine. And so theoretically, he could send me one that was 5x1. Yeah, you sent it to me, but I got no idea what that meant. Right. But it's very simple, 5x5. And so he's not adding noise, but he's actually reducing noise for me. It's like, oh, okay, he got it, and he understands why I sent it to him. And so those 3 characters on my screen, and it made me relax for the next 5 hours, because I know, I don't have to overthink that.
Sure. Yeah. All
so
right.
Good communication reduces communication.
Sure.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's a good way to bring us home, Randy.
I like that. Take us.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah.
That's what I do.
I'm not taking this one home.
Well, okay, I'll give it a crack here. So what we talked about was signal and noise, and we started off with the terms just as they sound in nature. Just, there's signal and noise, and boy, when the noise is loud, you can't concentrate on the signal. We also talked about it, though, from the point of view of creativity and artistic production, and the idea that when you're producing something that's truly unique and a gift to the world, that's a very different thing when it's coming from the heart there, as opposed to blah, blah wants a song about blah, blah. Can you do that? And I would imagine for cooking, it's very much the same thing. Cecilia is going to go and she wants to make some beautiful, amazing thing. And that's very different than the client saying, yes, well, I want a lobster bisque. You figure out how to make it fancy. Right. Okay. That's going to be a whole different kind of thing. We talked a bit about information theory and signal to noise there, and Shannon and Weaver, if you want to go look it up, there's amazing stuff, and the emergence of communication as a system. All of that's there. Amazing stuff. And then finally, we started talking about this idea of somatic, or the experience of your body in that signal to noise ratio, that you have there's a whole nother player. It's just not me, Mike, and Steve talking. It's all of our biological bodies also saying, hey, you've been on the road for the last 7 hours, for God's sake. Right. You got no sleep last night.
All right, Steve, wrap it up.
Illinois.
You can find us at resonanceleader.com. You can bring us in live for a conference. It'll move you and move the needle, I can tell you.
Nice.
It'll move something.
Ooh, that's a good. It's a good tagline. It'll move something.
Check us out everywhere you stream and pod. We are rolling down the information highway. We're having a lot of fun collaborating on this podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in. Mike the Monk Guy Ferrell, on behalf of Randy Harrington, the doctor, I'm Steve Azar. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Resonance. Find us at resonanceleader.com.